this should be the last part of the Yashica FR-1 CLA, part number 8, I think. Well, I got the electronics back, everything has been soldered except for these wires, so they all correspond to this. We have 3 up here, 1 here, and the last one is actually not from here but from the top plate. But the camera should be in working order. And it is. I also replaced this capacitor. This is the old one. And I did measure the old one. It was quite okay for the age of the camera, so this is a 40 years old camera. But since I was there, I decided to replace it anyway. All right, as a word of advice, I suppose, there was a slight issue after getting everything back together. Of course, the camera didn't fire, so I had to do some troubleshooting. And the first thing that came to mind was actually this, so the contact beneath the little pin, which is this one. So you have these 2 wires. One wire corresponds to this little ring or half ring. The other wire corresponds to this central part of this circuit. And this is the actual disc that makes that clicking noise when you push the button. And the idea is that this spacer, this ring, which is actually a spacer, must sit in between this part, so the one with the contacts, and the disc. And it's something like this. And the whole reason behind it is that it will not allow this to come in contact with the plate beneath it. This one conducts electricity, so being on top of this copper ring will make electrical contact. This is on top of it, and when you push the button on the camera, this little disc will come in contact with the center of this little board. So practically these 2 wires will come in electrical contact. Yeah, long story short, in order to verify that this has been mounted correctly, first of all, when nothing is touched, you should have no electrical contact between the 2 wires, so the gray and the black. Now, there are 3 black wires in this area. So we have 1 and 2, so 2 black wires go here, another one goes here. Now, one is from the switch, so from the release switch, out of these 2. One, so this little black wire that is paired with the gray one, because they are both held by this little retainer. These 2 are the release switch contacts. So the black wire goes here, the gray wire goes here. Normally, I'll get to the other ones in a second. So the multimeter is set on conductivity, I think. So pretty much it will beep when there is conductivity between 2 points, like this and this. Now, if I touch the gray wire and the black wire, nothing happens. If I push the button, the multimeter beeps. So that means that my contact is correctly assembled and working. Okay, now so we have release switch gray, release switch black, electromagnet black, and another electromagnet black. So it pretty much, this means that when you release the shutter, even if this part is not correctly assembled, you should still be able to release it if you would short these 2 points. So if I take the tweezers that I can check for conductivity. Let me see how I can. Okay, so they conduct electricity. Now the shutter has been armed, and if I touch this point and so this point and this point, the shutter opens. And that means that if once armed, the electronics is all in place, the battery is in place, if you touch those 2 points and the shutter goes, it means that the camera is okay. If the shutter doesn't go when you push the button, it means that this contact, this switch, is faulty or misassembled. Okay. If the shutter doesn't fire, it was my case, then we have a problem. Of course, first of all, you need to make sure that the battery is good, or the current from the battery actually reaches the circuit. Now, on the top plate of the camera, you have this battery check button. Now, the battery check simply pushes on a little spring contact, and that pretty much shorts these 2 points. Those 2 points come in contact with these 2 little pads. So if I short the little pads, this LED light, I think it's an LED, should light up. And it does. So that was my first check, although it was kind of useless because the light meter was already reacting to light. Okay, so I started reading the manual, and in the manual for this behavior of shutter not releasing, there was a long list of checkpoints, and one of the checkpoints was this contact. Now this is the contact for the motor drive, I think, if I remember correctly. And what happens is, in its released state, so when the shutter has been released, the 2 contacts towards the back of the camera are in contact, are having physical contact. When the shutter is cocked, the contact moves from the 2 rearmost to the 2 frontmost out of 3. So pretty much the one in the middle touches either one or the other. Now in my case, when it was armed, there was no contact here. And why was that? Well, because while this was out, so the assembly was out, I was arming manually. And when I was doing that, my finger would always touch this bit, this area. And in fact, I simply managed to bend this little spring contact out of place, so it was bent forwards. Obviously, I tried to bend it backwards, and the camera started working. All right, this is done. It's been rewired, so all these 3 wires are now routed correctly. The little bracket is in place, this one is in place, everything under the bottom plate is in place. I've also replaced the light seals under the bottom plate, so there's a light seal here and a light seal here. Yes, here. And those are done. And what I need to do now is to get the front plate on and then check for light meter accuracy. If it's not accurate, then I will have to adjust it. I don't really know how to adjust it yet because I honestly didn't read that part, but it's something around these 3 and another 3 trim pots. I'll see which is which. Okay, and I will need to figure it out which is ASA 100, which position of this dial. Okay, so that's about it for the first part of the video. I will add another part, at least one, if not more, as I progress towards the end of the adventure. But the good news so far is that, yeah, it lit up, so I didn't mess it up completely. All right, we will continue. As an idea, this is what's left from the 3 cameras. So top plates, back doors, bodies, front plates, mirror boxes, the electronics, little box of screws, release switches, another board, various bits and pieces like this box. I'll just put them in storage just in case I will need anything from them in the future. I might actually use some of the parts if needed in a Contax RTS that is somewhat functional, but I will have to service it, and as far as I know, at least the mechanical parts are identical. So yeah, if I need anything, I will use them. This is it. This is it. This is the Yashica FR-1. It's complete, or completed, or almost completed. Excuse me. Okay, so yeah, I finished it last night. I took it for a test drive today in the city center. Shot 17 frames, all turned out okay. The exposure was spot on. I used the auto setting just so I can make sure it works fine. I did focus test, so one shot at 1.7, The only thing that is still not okay is actually the leveling of the focusing screen, so it's not squared. My initial rig that I used, and I talked about I think in the last video, so the one with the light box and the 3 strips of tape and the letters, well, apparently it didn't work. I don't know if actually I know, I'm pretty sure it had something to do with the fact that I did the test with the lens focused to 0.5, so closest focusing distance, because I did it inside, and it also had a lot to do with the fact that I couldn't keep the bottom plate on because I had to release the shutter, and that meant that the camera would not sit totally horizontal. It had the tendency to go nose first. It also has that tendency now because of the lens, but every time I tried to pull it back, it would have a bit of a play. I didn't notice it until today when looking at a distant object. So I was trying to focus a building and it popped. I just saw it, the fact that the corners, two corners, were a bit out of focus. And after some going back and forth and back and forth and trying to wrap my head around it, I came to the conclusion that this corner was a bit too raised and this corner was a bit too lowered of the focusing screen. Now, I said initially that once the flexi board is in place, so the electronics is in place, there is no way you can actually reach those screws. Well, I was wrong. There is a way. The flexi, the big flexi that covers the prism, only starts to cover the prism somewhere around here. The screws are just a bit to the left. So the two pair of screws on the left side of the camera, those are accessible, it's not a problem. The pair of screws on the right side of camera, they can be accessible because apparently the flexi board has a hole in it, just above the screws. The only issue is that the diameter of the hole is actually smaller than the distance between the two screws. So that means that you would have to go screwdriver with the screwdriver angled like this to undo the black screw, and then go the screwdriver like this to adjust the silver screw, and then go back and tighten the black screw. While all of this, while you don't see anything, so it's kind of blind, unless, I don't know, maybe if you look from the front of the camera you can actually see the tip of the screwdriver touching the screws or something. I don't know, maybe. I'll see. I will see. Now, what I'm going to do, or what I'm going to try to do, one of these days when the light, during daylight, because last time it was in the evening, I was indoors, and that didn't help. I will try to put the camera on a tripod, go outside, find a building close by, ideally with something to focus on, so not just a plain wall, but maybe windows or a pattern or something, so I can easily see what I'm doing, because keep in mind the corners have no focusing aids, so they are plain ground glass. Okay, so mount the camera on a tripod, get this little level bubble thingy on top of the camera. First of all, I'll need to see if the hump, yeah, the hump is a bit in the way, but I can like put it here adjust the angle of the camera until it's horizontal, and then with the camera outside actually get the top plate off. Of course I'll disassemble most of it. Get the top plate off so I can access the screws. Do my thing for, I don't know, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, how long it will take, I don't know. And then hopefully it will be done. The only thing is that it's a lot easier if the thing that you are focusing on is not a dead infinity, but a bit closer than infinity, because that means you can jiggle the focusing back and forth, so closer and further away from the set focusing point, and see how that affects the corners of the images of the image of the viewfinder. If you are focused at infinity, you can only focus closer, but maybe the focusing screen focuses beyond infinity for that particular setting of the focusing screen. I'll see. On the other hand, if I'm not focused at dead infinity, it means that I will need to double check my focusing screen, so my viewfinder, with the film plate or the film plane. So I will always have to have a focusing screen taped here, open the shutter, and double check that what I see in the viewfinder that's in focus, it's actually also in focus on the film plane. And that adds an extra layer of shittiness. So I will probably try something in between, like focus closer, adjust for the corners, so the plane in which the focusing screen sits is correct, and then move the camera so it's focused at infinity, recheck the focusing in the middle. If the split screen is not aligned for infinity, then I will need to move the entire focusing screen up or down by adjusting all 3 screws at the same time with the same rate. So let's say I adjust clockwise a quarter of a turn one screw, I need to do that exactly the same for all screws. So the focusing screen makes a translational movement instead of rotational, I suppose. So that will be my biggest challenge yet, I think. But then I will be able to say, hey, I did it, it's done, it's working, it's what it should be, because everything else works. The light seals were changed, everything was changed. Whatever there was broken, it's changed. This little threaded thingy, whatever it's called, that couples the frame counter, it's changed. It works. You open the back door, it resets, so that's okay. It's surprisingly difficult to get that thing into the correct position. All right, what else? This I don't have. I don't know what was on top of this screw. You never had it. I suppose it was something like this. Maybe I'll improvise something, I'll see. The top plate, unfortunately, because I remembered, is one of the dented ones. I tried to put the metal one in instead of this one, because the metal one was actually dent free and it really looked okay. but apparently there was a slight design change between that one and this one, and it fits, and everything fits except this. So this dial can't go through the cutout in the top plate, so that's the reason I had to put this one back. But well, it's a camera with personality. It has battle scars, so yeah, why not? All right, so I will just show you really quickly 4 frames from the 17 that I shot today. All right, just a second so I can focus. All right, so this is a guy riding his bicycle, all nice and dandy. This is a nice Asian lady that decided to get a better vantage point for her photos. This was the focusing test. I focused on this sticker, the museum. All right, and this is probably my favorite from the bunch. Just a couple of people walking around, but I like how the composition flows. Anyhow, yeah, this is all from the city center of Sibiu in Romania, the old city center, which I highly recommend should you ever be around this part of the world. And this will be the end of the series. I will see you next time with, I don't know, maybe another SLR, maybe back to some Soviet stuff, maybe some Japanese rangefinders. We'll see. I don't know yet. Initially I wanted to open up that Context RTS, but this one drained me. Oh, and please keep in mind, I'm only doing this for like 11 months. So I started in 1st of January 2023. And this is my notebook. Oh look, I've got negatives. Oh no, it was not the 1st of January, it was 30th of December 2022. But this was something, this camera is a Romanian camera. It's absolutely awful. It's awful. But I guess I wanted to warm up before the New Year's Eve. And this was the first camera that I took apart. Minolta SRT 100B, 1st of January 2023. So don't take my words as written law. It's not. I'm just a newbie trying to have a bit of fun, pass some time, learn some things, and I like it. I just like it. But whatever I say should be regarded as a hint, a starting point, an idea, nothing more. Don't break your cameras because I said so. Alright, thank you for watching. I will see you next time. Goodbye.